Hi, I'm Scott Shriner.
I'm Shane Stahl.
Nice to have you with us today. We are going to talk about the Oscars. I'm the associate editor of Record Publishing Company's weekly papers, and my good friend Shane has agreed to join me and talk about the Academy Awards. The ceremony is going to be on Sunday, February 28th, and we just want to talk a little bit about our predictions for the awards this year, what we think is going to win, and maybe our preference on what will win and who we think should have been nominated in some cases. Just before we start, I won't give a big preamble, but I want to thank Weathervane Playhouse for letting us use this auditorium. It's our little version of Siskel and Ebert movie theater. So anyway, we'll start. We'll get right into it with Best Picture on the big category. So Shane, who do you think is going to win, or what do you think is going to win Best Picture this year?
Well, I think there's been some momentum lately for The Revenant. It's been picking up a lot of the awards. But I think in the end, I think Spotlight is going to take it. It has won the most Critics Awards. If you look throughout the entire season, it has the most. It is, I believe, the second best reviewed film of the year, 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. The cast is incredible. It's got 2 acting nominations for it.
Prestigious cast.
Right, and it's an issue film, and the Oscars love issue films. 12 Years a Slave, Coming Home. They love films where they feel like they can award a triumph of the human spirit, I think. And Spotlight definitely does that, so I think it's going to take that category.
Cool, I'm with you. I have to say, I think the movie's got like Oscar written all over it. It's really good. It's like a real life drama. The Boston Globe journalists investigating the Catholic Church, and it's critically acclaimed. I think it is difficult because I think The Revenant, like you say, has got a lot of momentum, and it's a box office hit. It's an incredible accomplishment. I feel like The Revenant's big win is going to be director, though. I think Alejandro Inarritu, if I'm pronouncing his name right, is going to win 2 years in a row because he won for Birdman last year. Could be. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Spotlight's going to win.
What's interesting to me, though, about this entire season is that everything is kind of unpredictable. There's a couple categories where there's definitely like, this is going to win, or this person is going to win. But even Best Picture, you know, the Globes went for Revenant,
right,
and The Big Short. The PGA went for The Big Short. The DGA went for The Revenant. Right. So and then Spotlight and Mad Max.
Yeah, Mad Max
won almost all the Critics Awards. So who knows?
I think
Mad Max will get shut out, unfortunately.
When you said it was the Spotlight was the second best reviewed movie, was Mad Max the first?
Inside Out.
Inside Out, right? Yeah, I've been amazed. I love Mad Max Fury Road, and I'm amazed at how critically acclaimed it was.
Right, it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
incredible. It's a great year.
It really is.
Spotlight's going to take it.
Yeah, good. I think you're right. If you had your druthers of the 8 nominees for Best Picture, what would you choose personally?
I would choose Spotlight. I've seen all the films. They all have their strong points. Mad Max, like you said. George Miller to come back after 30-some years away from that franchise and to bring it back so big and loud and
such energy.
So much energy, and not just, a box office hit, which I think we all thought it would do pretty well, but it slammed at the box office. And then they have all this critical acclaim. So that's kind of your tentpole picture for the year. Brooklyn, Room, they have their moments, they're good films, but I think Spotlight is just the most consistent of all the films. The editing in Spotlight, I think, it's such a tight picture. And even though we know what happened, this expose happened in 2001.
Right.
So, you could look at history and see what happened. But even though that's the case, I felt watching that movie, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I don't know where this is going to lead, or are they going to get the guy, So the Spotlight for me would be my personal pick too.
Cool. Yeah, it's really high on my list, and I agree. It's a great movie, great journalism movie, up there with All the President's Men, The Insider.
Oh yeah.
My personal choice of the Best Picture nominees, it's kind of a sentimental choice. I loved Brooklyn. I just adored that movie. I thought it was just fun and charming and funny and touching. Just everything, well acted and written. I just love Brooklyn.
It's a great film, yeah.
So, moving on, I guess ladies first. We'll do Best Actress. I'll go first this time.
Okay.
I think that this one's going to go to Brie Larson. I think this might be one of the ones that you were talking about when you said there are some that are easily predictable, and I feel like this performance, it's a remarkable performance in a movie that's very difficult subject matter, difficult story, and she's amazing. The only thing, I know she'd been around and done some other things, but the only thing I'd seen her in before Room was she played Amy Schumer's sister in Trainwreck, which I thought she was good, but she blew me away, and I think she's going to win.
I agree with you 110%. I mean, even more so than DiCaprio, she has consistently been winning.
Yeah, every award.
Every Best Actress award that's out there. She won the Globe, she won the SAG, she got the National Board of Review. I mean,
she's got to be used to it by now.
Right. Well, she's probably going to win the BAFTA.
Yeah.
So she's kind of just been on this roll, and I don't think that's going to stop at the Oscars. It's the performance is really interesting. The movie's really interesting because, of course, the first half takes place in that room, and then the second half they're in the outside world, and so you get to see both sides of this character. And what I love about it is it's not a perfect character. They don't make her flawless.
Right.
She loses her temper. She gets irrationally angry at times with her child, who's 5 years old, and they don't shy away from showing any of that. That she's not just this precious victim, which they could have turned her into.
Yeah.
I think it's hers. It's a beautiful performance, and she's been around quite a while. She's in a great movie called Short Term 12.
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
That's on Netflix.
It's on my list.
She could have been nominated, I think, a couple years ago had that movie picked up.
Yeah.
A little bit more momentum.
Yeah.
She's a phenomenal actress.
Good for her. Yeah. So who do you? Is she your personal choice to win? Is she your favorite?
She is.
Yeah.
She is my personal choice. I think there's so much. It's such a lived-in performance, and I mean, I'm a softie anyway, but I saw that movie and I couldn't stop crying for at least 20 minutes.
Oh gosh,
she's far and away my pick.
She's great. I think I know I'm back on Brooklyn again, but my personal pick might be. I think I got to go with Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn, just because I love that movie, and gosh, what can I say? I've been impressed with her since I first saw her in Atonement. She got her when she was 13 years old.
Got her first nomination.
And I think this is the movie where it's her transition to becoming a star. She just it's a cliche, but she just shines. I think in the movie.
She does. I mean, for me, she's definitely the best part of that movie.
Yeah.
Again, a really lived-in performance. The only thing I wish was a little different about this year's Best Actress category is I feel like they gave the obligatory Jennifer Lawrence nomination.
For Joy.
For Joy. And I was not a fan of Joy. Critics didn't really like it. It didn't do that well at the box office. She's a name. People like her.
She's a
very
draw.
popular. She's a draw. But if I had my druthers, I would not have nominated her. I actually would have nominated Charlize Theron for Mad Max.
For Mad Max, yeah. I mean, she got a Golden Globe nomination.
She did, and she is strong in that movie. She's you could dispute she's the lead,
lead
of that film.
Yeah.
She's vulnerable, she's tough. And just the conditions that she was working in. We hear all this talk this year about Leonardo DiCaprio and the conditions that they were working in, but I mean, they were in the middle of the desert. It was hundreds of degrees.
It looks pretty rough.
Right, and she was a soldier, and she went all the way through it. And unfortunately, because I think it's a genre picture, it's a sci-fi, fantasy, adventure.
Really hard to get an acting
Hard to get nominated. I think the last person that got a nomination for that kind of movie was Sigourney Weaver back in '86.
For Aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah, gosh.
She was able to transcend it. And I think Charlize, to me personally, transcended it and was nomination worthy, but the Academy, didn't think so.
I agree that she was great. And the one I think you make a good point. I'm a fan of Jennifer Lawrence. I loved her in her other Oscar-nominated roles, including Silver Linings Playbook and Winter's Bone and American Hustle. This one, I don't think she didn't deserve a nomination, but I would have left her off too, and I would have left her off in favor of Emily Blunt in
Sicario.
Sicario. Yeah, I just loved her performance, and that was a tough movie. If you haven't seen Sicario, and not that many people did actually, it didn't do as well as I wished it had, but it was a movie about where she played Emily Blunt played an FBI agent who kind of got recruited to go into this unit that was going after drug cartels, basically, and it's very violent and difficult, but she's fantastic in it. And I was hoping this was going to be her first nomination.
I know. She seems like somebody who you think would have had one.
Yeah,
by now.
Yeah, she will.
She doesn't.
It's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
And so moving on to Best Actor, I think we probably both agree on this.
Yeah.
Shall we say it in unison?
Probably.
DiCaprio. Yeah. It's his year, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the other nominees. I mean, they're in perfectly fine films.
Mm-hmm.
They're perfectly good performances. But this is kind of the culmination of everything. It's not my favorite performance. I don't know that I would give him an Oscar for this role.
Mm-hmm.
I would have given him an Oscar for his very first nomination, actually, for Gilbert
Grape.
Grape.
Yeah.
But he's got the momentum of this career. He's got all the previous nominations. There's a lot of goodwill in the industry toward him, and people want him to win an Oscar.
They do.
So he's going to get it, and like I said, would I give it to him for this? No.
Yeah.
But
it's hard to argue.
Right.
It's like he put himself through so much, like you were saying about the conditions. I don't even know if acting is the word. It's more like torture.
Right.
It's like surviving.
Right.
I mean, but seriously though, I am a fan of his, and I think he's one of the few big box office above the title movie stars today that really he's doing something interesting every movie he does, and that's not very many people can say that.
Right. Well, he's somebody who has the clout to get pictures made. I don't think this movie would have been made if he had not gotten behind it.
It's hard to imagine.
And agreed to star in it. I don't think people would go watch a 3-hour movie about dying in the wilderness.
Yeah. Without
anybody
Leonardo
else.
DiCaprio.
Right.
Yeah. He's good though, and I mean I think he's somebody who, kind of like you say, he deserves an Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know that I would give it to him for this one either. There are other ones that I kind of like better, other performances of his, but my personal, but I won't argue with it.
Right.
But my personal choice would have been Bryan Cranston in Trumbo. I just loved that he created just a textured, fun, interesting character based on the real, blacklisted screenwriter Donald Trumbo, and I just loved that performance.
It was great. My personal pick would have been somebody that wasn't nominated.
Oh yeah.
And that Jacob Tremblay.
Oh sure, from Room. Yeah.
There is no movie without him.
Yeah.
And
Totally his perspective.
His perspective, his voiceover, his experience of the world, of what he knows as the world, and then what he comes to understand the world really meaning. It's just a beautiful performance, and he's the lead. I know they were campaigning him and supporting, but he is the lead of that movie. And I just think it felt like, because I think a lot of times you see performances from youth, kids who under 10, and they can feel like not really performances, just like you could tell the director said be sad or be happy here. And it didn't feel like that to me at all. It felt so genuine. And the chemistry he had with Brie Larson. And
they really felt like a mother and daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and for whatever reason, the Academy,
mother and son.
mother and son, did have the long hair.
Yeah.
The Academy, for whatever reason, they just don't like young male performers. You look at the history of youth performance at the Academy Awards. On the male side, you have Jackie Cooper, way back in the 30s for The Champ. You have an honorary Oscar for Claude Yarman Jr. for The Yearling. And you have Justin Henry, who was nominated for Kramer vs. Kramer.
Did he win?
He was nominated.
He lost.
The youngest male winner of an Oscar is Timothy Hutton, who I think was 21 for Ordinary People.
Yeah.
But you look at the female side, you've had Abigail Breslin, Linda Blair,
Anna
Tatum O'Neal, Anna Paquin, Quvonjene Wallace, Keisha Castle Hughes. You've had all these female youth performances, and it's just an interesting dichotomy to me that, for whatever reason, they choose not to recognize the young men, but they seem comfortable with young women. I don't know what that means or what it is. It's a fascinating story.
Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow, I never thought of that. See, this is why I picked Shane to do this with me. He's a treasure trove of Oscar trivia.
I try.
But okay, so best supporting actor. I mean, I think Stallone's going to get this one. He is Oscar trivia we were talking about the other night. He's the second person in Academy history to get nominated twice for the same role. Because he got nominated the first time he played Rocky. The only other person is Cate Blanchett, who was nominated both times she played Elizabeth
I.
But yeah, I think he's going to win. It's time for Creed. I mean, everybody just really liked seeing him kind of in the older mentor role, and I thought he did a great job.
He did, and it's, I mean, Sylvester Stallone has had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the critics,
to say the least.
I mean, he became the big tentpole star in the 80s, Rambo and the Rocky sequels and all that. And I think that maybe led people to sort of undervalue him as an actor, what he could do as an actor.
I agree.
In Creed, I think he benefits from Creed being a really good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know that the expectations were that high, because the last Rocky sequel had been, 7 or 8 years ago, and it was kind of his swan song, it felt like, to the character, and then you hear that they're going to do this, and they're going to bring Rocky, and you're like, oh, this is going to go either way.
Yeah. I think it was a little bit under the radar. I think you're right, as Rocky movies go.
Right, and it was a phenomenal movie. Michael B. Jordan is somebody I wouldn't have minded getting nominated in Best Actor. But he's the weight of that movie, and he is, the link to the original franchise. He's the character.
Yeah.
And I just think it's subtler than we've ever seen him. He's in that, like you said, that supporting mentor role, which I think we all kind of wanted to see him grow into.
Yeah.
Definitely echoes of Burgess Meredith from the original Rocky films. And I think, even though he didn't get nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award, he won the Globe, he's won several Critics Awards. I think this is his.
I think so,
I don't
too.
think there's anybody that can touch it.
Yeah, I think an indication to me that was when you had the SAG Awards where Stallone was not nominated for a SAG Award, which is interesting, but the SAG was, in this category, was won by Idris Elba for Beast of No Nation, who's not even one of Stallone's competitors for the Oscar. And in terms of I think this is a really great category. Supporting actor always is. A lot of really good performances, but he's far and away the favorite. If I had to pick one, I mean, it's hard. I really did, back to Spotlight again. I thought Mark Ruffalo was great. His third nomination, I want him to win an Oscar eventually because he was the standout. If there was a standout in that great cast in Spotlight, it was him, I think. But I won't argue with Stin, Rocky, Balboa winning an Oscar.
Exactly. Well, it feels triumphant.
It
feels like a moment of triumph. Rocky wins the Oscar.
The underdog.
But Elba is actually who I would have liked to see nominated.
Yeah.
It was definitely my top 3.
Yeah.
That was a gamble by Netflix, doing their first ever cinematic release in terms of trying to get awards and attention.
It paid off.
It paid off.
Yeah.
That movie is so. He plays a dictator, rebel leader in Africa, who's in charge of these child soldiers. And again, I think you go into it thinking this is a character that could be very one-dimensional, but there are so many layers that you see revealed over the course of the movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know why he was not nominated and not a part of this conversation.
The only thing I can think of is, I mean, maybe there's just a legitimacy to the fact that the movie was, originated on Netflix. Maybe the industry is not quite ready to nominate somebody for that. I don't know why, but yeah.
I think that's valid, but it is interesting, and maybe cinematically, it's not ready, but I mean, television-wise, it's certainly ready. They've nominated everything.
So. Totally. I mean,
And you've had, this is I think the second or the third year in a row that a Netflix documentary has been nominated for the documentary awards. So I don't know what the disconnect is in the main categories, but gosh, I wish he would have showed up. He's a top-notch actor in everything he does. And
Great.
And he won the SAG.
And he won 2 SAGs.
He did.
Won for Luther.
For Luther as well, yeah.
Last one, Best Supporting Actress. This is, I think we were talking earlier, this is the tough one. I mean, I think I'm going to predict Alicia Vikander for The Danish Girl. I think this has been a huge year for her. She didn't come out of nowhere, but it felt like it to me. She was in so many films this year, including, most notably, I think, The Danish Girl and Ex Machina was the other one. And I think she brings a lot of depth to this role in The Danish Girl. I think if anything's going to work against her, it's the fact that there's been a little backlash, criticism against this film for being a bit inaccurate historically, these real people that it's based on. But if somebody's going to be a dark horse, I think it would be Kate Winslet for Steve Jobs, who could win her second Oscar, and she was great. But Alicia Vikander is my prediction.
Alicia Vikander is my prediction as well.
Yeah.
Supporting actress is a category where they seem to like to award the starlet type, or the younger actress who maybe hasn't had her huge break yet.
Yeah.
You look at the history of the category: Rachel Weisz, Patty Duke, Tatum O'Neal. It's a lot of younger up and coming. Meryl Streep's first Oscar, supporting Oscar. So
lest we forget.
Right, and I think they treat it sort of as a stepping stone to bigger and better things. So Alicia Vikander really, really fits that model, and she's great in the Danish Girl. She does what she can with the material. It's not a favorite of mine personally, but I mean she's perfectly serviceable in the role. My personal pick, and it's a little weird. My personal pick is actually Rooney Mara.
Yeah, for Carol.
However, I think she's nominated in the wrong category.
Should be a lead.
Rooney Mara is the lead
Yeah.
of Carol, and the Globes nominated her as lead, and so many of the other Critics Awards nominated her as lead, because she really is, and Cate Blanchett really is the supporting.
I would agree.
But this being Hollywood, and this is a Weinstein film, and Harvey is famous for trying to put people where he thinks they have a good chance of winning.
Yeah, position them.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, she does incredible work. She's not a favorite of mine in terms of an actress. I don't necessarily like her body of work, but in this film, I just think she's so understated, and her reactions are so precise, and it's a very controlled performance. But when she does finally let go for a minute there, it's natural. It's not, you don't feel like it's out of place. That's not happening.
And she's great. And Rooney Mara is great.
And then as far as, again, with Alicia Vikander, I actually would have nominated her for Ex Machina.
Yeah,
I think she's better in Ex Machina.
I love that movie.
But again, it's a genre film.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi film, and the Academy does not like, for whatever reason, to spotlight those performances.
I don't think, did Ex Machina get any?
I don't think Ex Machina got
That's sort of
any nods.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would have put her in for that. I mean, she was so cold and, playing an AI, artificial intelligence, but it felt so creepily real. And
It did.
I think that movie is very telling in terms of where we are
Bit
in
unsettling.
society right now. It was unsettling, and that's why I would have nominated her, because she did unsettle me. She made me feel something.
Yeah. Well, the person that I would pick for Best Supporting Actress, I have to say I really loved Jennifer Jason Leigh in Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. I'm a Tarantino fan. I think Tarantino is just one of the best directors for actors. He gets great performances out of actors that a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times they're actors that I don't necessarily think are that great in general. But Jennifer Jason Leigh was, she just threw herself into this crazy role as Daisy, this captive of Kurt Russell's crazy John Ruth character, and I thought she was a blast, and I love acting in Tarantino films, or I wish I could, because like I say, he just brings out stuff that you never knew actors had in them, I think.
Right. Well, and I was really happy to see Jennifer Jason Leigh get nominated because
Yeah.
again, she's somebody who's been working for a very long time.
Gosh, decades.
And I remember back in the 90s there being talk for her being nominated for Georgia.
Yeah.
And for Last Nights in Brooklyn, where she played Tra-La-La.
Right.
So it's great. I always love when somebody who's been in the business for a long time, doing consistently good work, finally, Sylvester Stallone even, who's been trucking all these years, finally gets another
Gets some
nomination.
recognition.
She gets her first. I think
Yeah.
that's really, really cool.
It's very cool. Well, I realized that I didn't talk about, we've got to go back and end here on Best Picture again and talk about what we would personally have nominated that didn't get nominated.
Yes.
So you have something there?
I do. I would have nominated Inside Out.
Oh yeah, beautiful movie.
An incredible film. I think it's another Pixar triumph. It transcends its genre to really, really speak to kids and adults. I think that movie is something that everybody can relate to. It's the best reviewed movie of the year, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. The voice performances, Amy Poehler, Phyllis Smith.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what a great role for her. And it's just so beautifully done, and it's a complete movie. There's an arc, and it ends, and you feel satisfied.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave you wanting any more. And I think it's the most beautiful film of the year. And I unfortunately, I think because now there is the best animated feature category, I think voters think, well, we'll recognize it there. We don't have to put it.
And it'll probably win that.
Oh,
that
I
category.
think
It'll win
hands
Best
down.
Animated. But yeah, I agree. It's sort of like now that they've added that category, they feel like, well, we don't have. It's really hard to get nominated if you're an animated movie in Best Picture category.
Right. There's
It's
only
happened
been
a couple
three.
times,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And they've all been Disney or Pixar. Beauty and
Yeah.
the Beast, Toy Story 3, and Up.
Up, right, yeah. Mine, okay. Nobody who knows me is going to be surprised by this. I would have nominated for Best Picture Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I mean, okay, it is a basic Star Wars movie. It's not really transcendent of its genre, but man, is it a great example of its genre. And it's, I'm a big Star Wars fan, full disclosure, but I thought that everything about it was pretty much perfect. And I'll say this, I think I really enjoyed The Martian a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Mad Max Fury Road. I will say if those two deserve Best Picture nominations, so did Star Wars. That's what I'm going to say.
I think Star Wars was definitely up there. I mean, the BFCAs had their nominations, then they went back and they threw Star Wars in the mix.
That's right,
After it
yeah.
was
Because
released.
they added another
A slot,
notch,
because there was that embargo on seeing it for so long, and understandably.
Yeah.
I love Star Wars. I think it was everything people were wanting and more. I know some people have expressed annoyance with, it's too similar to A New Hope, but I think it paid the right amount of respect to where it came from, and washed the taste of the prequels out of everybody's mouth. And it is nominated, for 4 categories, visual effects, sound mixing, sound editing. It's already won 4 Visual Effects Society Awards.
And original score.
It's nominated for the John Williams score.
Yeah.
So I definitely see it picking up at least one award.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, there was even a bit of a campaign, I think, for Daisy Ridley.
That would have been great.
Who I would have hit the floor if Daisy Ridley had been nominated.
Yeah.
But yeah, Star Wars is, I personally would replace Bridge of Spies with Star Wars. I thought Bridge of Spies was, I turned it off halfway through.
Oh, that's right. We talked about this.
just-
I like Bridge of Spies a lot, but
I found it boring.
Yeah.
I found it formulaic.
But you got Spielberg and Tom Hanks just doing their thing. Classic movie making.
I think it's a little third tier Spielberg.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Shane.
Of
If
course.
you hadn't said you loved Star Wars, I don't know. I would have had to just put the kibosh on this whole
Oh, no,
thing.
we're good.
Good. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you at the movies.